Okay, I know this might ruffle some feathers, but don't get that degree. Get to work. All right? I know a lot of you have student loans for degrees you don't even use. I know I do, right? And yes, we can all say that the degree process, the formal education process was enlightening, and there's still people we know to this day, we're friends and blah, 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 blah. But let's just be honest. Some of us have six-figure debt levels because of school loans. And what do we really have to show for it? Do we really have the income to justify all that debt? Now, here's the thing. Now, if you're a doctor or a lawyer and you absolutely need that degree, of course, you have to get it. There's no other way to try to practice because that's part of the licensing process. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about liberal arts. I'm talking about everything else. Anything it is not required to have a degree to do the job or do the profession. Because if you're out there on your own, you just got laid off, or you're trying to do your own thing on the side, or even just full time, you have a very limited amount of money. Remember, money is time. We can't spend up all our money chasing after a goal. And school, formal education is super expensive. The better strategy is to get to work. And what I mean specifically is, if you can find an apprenticeship program, if you can find a certification program where you actually have to do the thing next to someone who will directly supervise you and tell you why they do what they do and why you should not do what you think you should do, that they can sit there and correct you as you do it. Or if you do something and you have to turn it in and they give you immediate feedback, and it's a learning process that's very hands-on where you're doing the work, right? Think about it this way. Did you learn how to drive by reading a book? Did you learn how to drive because someone lectured you about driving? Did you learn how to drive because you watched a YouTube video? No. You actually had to get behind the wheel to actually feel how it feels to drive, what to do with your feet, how everything coordinates. You just don't learn that passively. And formal education is a very passive instructional experience where you sit back and try to stay awake as you're hearing hours and hours and hours of lectures and content. And okay, especially if you're trying to learn about business, everyone says get your MBA. Let me tell you something. If you go online, they're handing out MBA like Halloween candies. Okay, I know a lot of people who have MBAs. One of the business owners that I've worked with, he got his MBA from a very reputable school. And when I tell you that I watched this man struggle with basic business principles, I'm like, were you asleep? I mean, he has the degree on his wall. I'm like, were you asleep when they were teaching this? Did you pay for this degree? Because he has it, right? And this is not a school that's easy to get through. But I'm watching this man in his day-to-day, and he's either forgotten it or just got the degree just to have that banner, have that certificate on his wall so it looks good. And it looks great. And truthfully, when I saw it, I was impressed. But then when I watched him, it was clear that he was not experienced in doing the things that the MBA tells you to do. So ultimately, you need to be doing the thing. So a certification where you actually have to go somewhere and there's some kind of instructor that makes you do it and watches you do it, who sits next to you while you drive, right? That's the better scenario, right? You want apprenticeship. You want something to where someone is directly over your shoulder or next to you or very close by to say, hey, don't do that thing you're about to do. Do it this other way because it makes sense. And make sure there's a professional doing it. It's like, for example, so I did video production, right? So I did TV and film work. And that's very much a hands-on thing, right? And they don't give you a lot of praise and pats on the back. And you definitely don't get A's. You just get cussed out. And you get you get fussed at and you get criticized because you're trying to do something. You're part of a team. There's a more senior person on the team. And if you screw up, it's their fault. They get called out. So they're very hard on you to make sure that you do your job so that they don't get harassed and messed with, right? So you represent them. So they have to be accountable for you. So they'll make sure that you do everything right. And it doesn't mean that it's this very nice kumbaya, feel good, warm and fuzzy environment. Sometimes you get your butt kicked, but you learn from it, because the best way to learn from something is to struggle. If you look at babies and when they learn how to walk, did they watch a video? Did they did someone coach them on how to walk, or did they just fall on their ass enough times to learn them how to walk, right? And it was frustrating, and they cried, and they may have got some bumps and bruises, but after a while they started to learn how to run, right? There was no class to teach them how to walk. And I think sometimes we forget, because we get so used to schooling and education, we just immediately think that getting a degree is the way to go about it. No, get out there and do it, right? Get out there and do it with a program or something. I mean, online is fine. Just the formal education part of it, where you're being lectured, you're really not going to learn that way, okay? So this doesn't need to be super long. We'll keep it short. But just remember, from a cost perspective, getting a degree is prohibitively expensive. Like $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year, depending on what college you go to, where a certificate might cost you $3,000 a year, $2,000 a year, $5,000 a year, right? It might be $5,000 for the whole program that lasts 2 years, right? Way better to get your certification and have those letters after your name, and do that at maybe 5 to 10% of the overall cost of a formal degree. And I'm telling you, out of these certification programs, the people who teach these and run these are working professionals, and you can get referrals from these working professionals because they're still active in the community that they work in. So getting a referral from them is going to be a lot more powerful than a referral from a college professor that's not even in the industry, or may have retired from the industry 20 years ago and isn't aware of what's going on in your field, okay? So I'm a big proponent of using certifications and apprenticeship programs versus a college degree, unless it's a job like a lawyer or a doctor where you have to have a degree as part of the licensing process, okay? That is understandable. But basically, almost every other job, a degree is something that makes you feel good because you feel like that's what you're supposed to do, and you get up in a lot of debt, and you're trying to do this new thing. And if you're a career changer and you're in your late 30s or your 40s, you don't have time or money to spend 6 figures in debt to hope to make money one day, 2-3 years in the future, right? It's a bad exchange. So we'll keep it relatively short today, and I'll talk to y'all next time. All right.